Good morning, City of Miami residents and the general public that's viewing us currently on Channel 77 on the City of Miami television channel. My name is Albert Garcia. I'm the chairman of the Wynwood Bid Board of Directors. Welcome to our Wynwood Bid Marketing and Economic Development Committee meeting. While we work out some technical issues, which are really not issues, but just part of the new normal that we're living in as we virtually stream these meetings, we're just waiting for confirmation that all of our other platforms are in sync and broadcasting live before we commence our meeting. Thank you very much for taking the time to tune in, and we look forward to any public comments you may have already submitted. And as a reminder, all of our details with regards to submitting public comments are available at our website, wynwoodmiami.com. All right, we are officially broadcasting on all of our platforms and channels. So again, welcome. This is the Wynwood Bid Marketing and Economic Committee meeting. It's Thursday, May 21st. And for those of you that have never been to a Wynwood Bid Marketing Committee meeting or a Wynwood Bid public meeting in general, please allow me to be the first one to welcome you to the Wynwood Bid. We are an autonomous agency of the City of Miami government established back in 2013. With a primary mission to serve the Wynwood Arts District community, a 50-block arts district, of course, located in the city of Miami. We are a special taxing district where our commercial property owners pay an additional tax that helps to guide the mission of the organization to reinvest in a variety of different topics, initiatives, services that range from security, sanitation, marketing, infrastructure, master planning, just to name a few. So for more information about us, always feel free to visit us online at wynwoodmiami.com and at Wynwood Miami on a variety of social channels. With that being said and out of the way, we'd like to get started with our agenda, which for those of you that are viewing us or listening in can of course find that agenda available at wynwoodmiami.com. First, we begin with our roll call. So we're gonna go ahead and ask all of our members who are on the call with us today to state their name, and if they'd like to say anything, of course, to address the general public, feel free to use this opportunity to do so. And this is for the board members first.
Sven Vogland.
David Charette, and I hope everyone's well and safe.
Leslie Sharp.
And again, I'm Albert Garcia. So that is our roll call of directors. And now we are going to get started. So board members, I'm sure you've had an opportunity, I hope, to see our agenda for today. And if you haven't received the packet, we can get it to you, of course, if that's the case. So we are going to go ahead and just jump right in to the agenda. So what I'd like to do, and of course, as we meet, based on other board members that may join us in progress, we may ask them to introduce themselves just for the public record. So if there is an interruption for that, that is the reason why. So we're going to get things started with Chris to give us an update on everything that's going on as far as what he's been up to for the last several weeks as part of his update.
Albert, do we want to go into public comment first?
Thanks for that reminder, Chris.
Yep. You muted yourself.
Yes, thank you for that. So this is obviously all a new world here. So I'm the one who made the first mistake of the morning. Hopefully it's the last. So yes, public comment. So pardon that. As a reminder, we are a board of the City of Miami. So we welcome and encourage public comments at all of our meetings. That is where we always begin our meetings. And because this meeting is virtual, there are a variety of ways to get your comments heard and part of the public record. Those are all detailed, again, at wynwoodmiami.com. We do have some audio public comments on file, and we're going to let Chris play those out. So board members, just sit tight while we play those comments into the record.
Yeah, I know there's a little bit of delay, so just wanted to give it a little bit. And here we go.
My name is Sid, S-I-D, Hoetzell, Hoeltzell. I have been a commercial photographer in Wynwood at 120 Northwest 25th Street. I'm speaking about hand sanitizers, which are hard to get and should be appreciated. The basis of my call is that I am acting as a sole agent for Miami Strong Hand Sanitizers. It is made originally by the Miami Club Rum Company, which is a local Wynwood business. And since the city has mandated that hand sanitizers should be available, I am the wholesale agent and can be reached at www.miamistronghealth.com or at 1-833-642-7876. Our product is 80% alcohol and FDA approved and is local delivery, so you won't have to wait forever for shipping. But please contact me at sid@sidphoto or www.miamistronghealth.com. I appreciate this opportunity to offer local businesses. And again, the product is 80% alcohol, much stronger than most of the hand sanitizers you have on the market. It's made locally with local ingredients. It's FDA approved, and it's available at www.miamistronghealth.com. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Claudia Gold, and I live at 240 Northwest 25th Street. My public comment is as follows. Hi, my name is Claudia Gold. I live in Wynwood 25, and I'm the founder of Walkable Wynwood. I am calling to express support for two related proposals. The first is allocating additional street space to restaurant outdoor seating, and the second is widening sidewalks around Wynwood to allow for 6 feet of social distancing between pedestrians when walking. To determine support for these concepts among residents and customers of Wynwood businesses, I conducted a survey of residents in my building, Wynwood 25. As many of you know, Wynwood 25 has nearly 300 units and is currently the largest residential building in Wynwood. I'd like to share a few preliminary results with you from that survey. The results show that residents of Wynwood 25 are extremely frequent customers of local businesses. 96% of survey respondents said they visit Wynwood businesses at least once per week, and 60% said they visit Wynwood businesses at least once per day. Walking was the single most common form of transportation used by Wynwood 25 residents when visiting local businesses. 86% said that when they visit local businesses, they often walk, versus 32% who say they often use a car, including ride shares. 91% of respondents definitely support a plan to allocate additional outdoor seating to restaurants. 86% definitely support a plan to widen sidewalks for social distancing. It's truly rare to have so much consensus on any one topic. As you can see, the residents of Wynwood are loyal customers of our local businesses and are also extremely supportive of these proposals. I'm happy to share the raw data and complete text of the questions and answers, and will send a copy to the Wynwood bid when the survey is closed.
Okay, so that covers the audio public comments. Chris, as we prepare to close the public comments portion of our agenda, can you confirm if there are any text submissions that we've received?
There are no text submissions.
Okay, we're closing that option. And Manny, can you please confirm if there are any individuals present at the bid office that seek to be heard as part of public comments?
There are no individuals here at the office. We've been here since about 9, so we're clear.
Thank you, Manny. All right, that officially closes the public comments portion of our agenda. And with that, we are moving forward to the next item on our agenda, which of course is our social media update. And this is going to be handled by Chris, as well as providing his marketing coordinator report. Chris, take it away.
Thanks, Albert. So for the marketing report, just to catch everyone up, the bid was very active once this pandemic started. Thank you for all the help behind the scenes for everyone that was on it. In total, we've sent about 12 email memos out to our entire email database that kept everyone apprised of all the changes that came in response to it, whether it was establishments needing to shut down, capacity loads, anything like that, as also sending out small business loans and anything that we believe that would be beneficial to the Wynwood neighborhood. Other than that, we also compiled a list of all active food and beverage operators that were going to remain open during the shutdowns for takeout and delivery. That list is constantly updated and can be found at wynwoodmiami.com/food. We also took that list and sent a much more detailed version over to the GMCVB and to the Miami Herald, as they each had their own individual outreach programs to ensure that all of our local businesses were getting as much coverage as possible to have people take out and dine from there. So moving on, the bid also assisted with a couple different donation programs, which some will go into again later on, with Basico, the Salty, and Domio. Just a quick recap on each. Basico did a capsule collection to where 40% of the proceeds from the t-shirts that they sold went to local bar, nightclub, El Patio. They're very close there. It's a great collaboration for them. The Salty, if anyone is unaware, they have been doing a donut donation campaign to local area hospitals and first responders, where you can purchase donuts for them to deliver to them. And Domio did a room night donation for first responders as well to help within the medical field. One of the other things that was launched for social media was our Win at Home program. So this was a series of Instagram live videos that went online. Some of the participants, which we're thankful for, Koyo Taco, 1-800-Lucky, Museum of Graffiti, as well as Vesasor, El Patio, and several others. They were generous enough to donate their time and employees to do different live cuts. So we had a great chef demonstration from Chef Scott of Koyo Taco that went through different tacos and a couple different margaritas. Museum of Graffiti joined us with Atomic and did a Q&A to learn more about his history, which was very well received. And with this program, we also have a few coming in that you can find on our IGTV channels if anyone wants to watch. Yeah. So as far as the social media update, all of our audience continue to grow. Between the three main social media audiences, we now have over 191,000 followers, doing our best to keep that moving along. Now, since we haven't had an update in a while, between March and April, there was 228 different posts across them with 51,000 engagements across all three platforms. As I mentioned earlier with the IGTV videos, we've only been able to put up 6 so far, but just those 6 have already garnered over 15,000 views. So we view that as a very positive development and a new program that we're doing and plan to continue launching the IGTV videos. And then just so everyone is aware, beginning in June, all social media functions will be handled internally between myself and Alexander. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Chris, for that update. Next, we're going to go to PR, and we're going to hand it off to, I think it's Taylor, or who's going to handle this for us, right, Taylor?
Yes, me. Hi, everyone. I'm Taylor Cavastos here at Kivvit. We're the Wynwood Bids PR firm of record. So I'm just going to talk through some of our recent initiatives throughout March and April. Obviously, a lot of this being tied to COVID response. So if you go to the next slide, perfect. So this is just a breakdown of some of our initiatives throughout the past 2 months. Of course, the Wynwood Bids initial response was very important, educating all the business owners and making sure they were informed in terms of what was the regulations for the closures, what resources were available, etc. And then using this, we really used Albert and Manny as thought leaders to speak on behalf of the Wynwood Bid, their previous experience with business closures such as Zika, and just what the Wynwood Bid was doing to continue to support businesses in the area throughout this pandemic. As Chris mentioned, part of our job was promoting the Salty Donut donation campaign, as well as the Win at Home virtual campaign, and of course, Domio's generous donation of room nights to our hospital workers here in Miami. Next slide. Okay, so first was the initial response. So like I said, with Wynwood Bid's previous experience with Zika, they knew that information sharing was of the utmost importance. So from the very beginning, they made sure that they had daily newsletters with updates going out to all business owners and operators in the neighborhood. Chris had mentioned that he made sure all the restaurants who were open for pickup and delivery were on one comprehensive web page so that people could continue to support small businesses, locally owned restaurants, even throughout the stay-at-home orders. So this resulted in our inclusion, as well as Albert and Manny's thought leadership in articles like The Real Deal, Miami Herald, Aventura Magazine did a whole feature about it. And then we also tried to keep Wynwood nationally a focus through articles about virtual tours, what's online, and people, of course, are always attracted to our street art. You can actually see a bunch of the street art on Google Maps, just a fun fact. Next slide, Chris. Perfect. So again, tying to the initial COVID response, Albert and Manny were included in several local on-air and online segments tied to what the industry is doing to really brace for this impact of COVID. Next slide. Perfect. And then Win at Home, this was really a great campaign. I really give my credit to Chris, Alexander, the entire bid team, because, you know, for the first time, businesses had to find a way to be impactful through social media. And so we, as the PR firm, really had to work with social teams to make sure that we were cross-promoting. I mean, at Wynwood Miami has over 155,000 followers. So the bid immediately identified this as a way to continue to bring businesses to the area and keep Wynwood top of mind. So we got plenty of coverage, dedicated features in local publications, as well as online lifestyle blogs like Time Out, Culture Owl, Thrill List, Miami New Times, all those lifestyle pubs. Next one, Chris. Perfect. Salty Donut donation campaign. Again, we just made sure that the Salty was included in any and all coverage, talking about what local restaurants and businesses are doing to help our frontline workers. Of course, now a month and a half in, we've seen so many of these philanthropic initiatives. The Salty really was one of the first ones to jump on it and set up this donation. So we are proud to pitch it, and it really showed great coverage for businesses in the neighborhood. Okay, and finally, this is our last initiative I'm going over, and it was the Domio Wynwood room night donation. So Domio is a national hotel apartment company. Essentially, they're fully furnished, gorgeous rooms, and they had just opened up their Wynwood location earlier this year. And so the bid really worked with Domio and vice versa to make sure that they were still able to contribute to our local community, even though they were a new company in Miami. That's their flagship hotel is in Wynwood. So we really wanted to make sure that that property was highlighted and their philanthropic efforts were highlighted as well. So we had Manny speak on WLRN Sundial about the donation, and we also got a couple dedicated features on what they continue to do in offering free room nights. So thanks so much to Jackson and to Domio and to Wynwood bid. You know, it's a lot of players in this story, but everyone was so great with coordinating, and we really saw great results to our efforts here. So looking ahead, you know, just as important as communication and information sharing was at the beginning as we were starting to close, the Wynwood bid will continue to offer information as we do a phased reopening. And in terms of PR, we're here to help support the neighborhood, support the bid, and your constant efforts to make sure the neighborhood is safe and clean and ready once we can start to reopen fully. So that's it.
Thank you, Taylor, very much for that recap. We are going to talk, of course, in greater detail when we get to the reopening portion of our agenda, so that if anybody's viewing or listening, just so you know, we definitely have a lot to cover, but this is more of the recap that our various partners and members have been working on. So with that, we're going to now take on a new topic on the agenda, which is a drive-in movie theater proposal that we received several weeks ago. And Chris is going to show you on the screen some of that as we call that up. This was, sent to us as a proposal that's being considered. My understanding is in coordination with the folks at Wynwood, as well as other partners. And, the idea behind this proposal is to find creative ways to bring people back to the neighborhood. And of course, as we all know, our nightclubs, our special events, and large gatherings are currently prohibited as part of the series of emergency orders that are in place throughout the county and the city. But we have been seeing in media reports around the country and now in Florida, as well as in South Florida, a proliferation, perhaps on a temporary basis, but who knows, maybe this is part of the new normal as well, a return to the classic drive-in movie theater program. As Wynwood continues to evolve, there is a lot of development happening, but we're also fortunate to still have some parcels of empty land that have been utilized for special events in the past. And of course, Mr. Manna, who's the largest property owner in the city of Miami and in Wynwood, has been generous to entertain this proposal. And as an organization, I think it's an opportunity for us to also lean our support as well to work with the city to find ways to have this event legally permitted or at least allowed in some capacity. Of course, working with our officials at Department of Health and other departments of the city and the county to make sure that by doing something like this, we're not inadvertently putting our community in any danger. So we're just going to walk you through just a few quick slides on this, and then we'll open it up for discussion from the board. So as I said, this is the RC Cola site. This is out to the westernmost portion of the neighborhood abutting I-95 between Northwest 5th and 6th Avenue. And I think everybody here is familiar with that site. Chris, if you can move us to the next slide. So the way it's been portrayed to us and the way it looks here on the screen clearly is that they are, of course, availing themselves of the clear and open space to create a designated area for vehicles to come in, park, facing a large viewing screen, which would be, of course, that movie screen. The whole concept behind this, of course, is to adhere to all the various safety and health and security guidelines that have been put forth by government leaders and agencies. So this would be a fully, I think secure environment is the way that the promoter is approaching this concept, whereby everybody would stay in their vehicles, their windows would remain closed. It would be a touchless, contactless experience from entry to exit. Audio, for example, would be streamed over the FM radio spectrum so that people can all listen in at the same time to what's happening at the screen. So for those of us that are a little older, that remember the drive-in movie days, you had to lower your window and pop that little speaker on your window to hear the audio. Well, now in 2020, technology obviously has worked around that. So that's one more way that the proposal speaks to that safety element. And of course, there would be restrooms and a back of house to provide food and beverage and concession opportunities for this to be a profitable venture for the operator, because it would certainly entail some expense. And of course, restrooms and all of those things that would be operating on site would, of course, be observant of all of the policies that are in place from a health standpoint at the time throughout the operation. The idea is the cars would come in tandem, and then, of course, at the end of the movie, they would subsequently leave the site. Chris, can you move us to the next slide? So here's another three-dimensional portrayal of exactly that. There you can see the exits on the right. There's an exit further to the west that you can't see from this rendering, and there's your BOH, your back of house, and your restrooms. And next slide, please, Chris. And there's another aerial shot kind of rendered over the existing conditions just to kind of help everybody visualize the concept. We've, as you all know, the Wynwood Bid partners with O Cinema, at least we were before the closures, on a monthly film series. So we've also made introductions for the team with the folks over at O Cinema. Perhaps there's an opportunity there as well for us to continue our monthly series, and we're exploring that as well as providing them at no expense to the event organizers for curation of films and facilitation of securing distribution rights to screen first-run Hollywood movies as well as classics. Next slide, please, Chris. Here's a proposal kind of schedule of what they anticipate the rundown looking like. So as you can see here, again, this is obviously just for discussion purposes, but there'd be 2 screenings per evening. Of course, this would have to be at night. And there'd be a load-in sequence where when you ticket for this event, drivers would have to be on site, queuing up, being guided in responsibly and safely in time for the movie beginning at 7. Typically, movies run about 2 hours or so, and then there'd be a reset opportunity between the exiting models' vehicles to allow for another load-in for a second showing later that evening. So, this is kind of, again, for discussion purposes, but just to kind of aid us in addressing any questions about how that flow might look and function. And I think there's one more slide. Thank you. Right, that's it. Okay, so you can bring it back, Chris, if you'd like, to the video so we can all see each other. So at this time, I just want to open it up for discussion. So since we are on a virtual environment, I'm going to be unmuting your microphones just so everybody can be heard. So all I'm asking is if you don't want to be called on or singled out, just raise your hand physically, or you can do so through the program, and that'll cue us so that we know that you're interested in making comments. So while I wait for people to raise their hands, no pressure. I want to start by saying that I think this is a brilliant idea. Certainly, we have to make sure, as I said at the onset, that we're working together as a community to make sure that this is a huge success and done responsibly and safely. I do believe this is an opportunity to bring back people that are so desperately looking to have shared experiences. As we know, that's very limited to do right now. Case in point, we're here virtually and not together in the same room. But there's an opportunity perhaps to figure out how to do that responsibly. And I do believe that this type of a format and program does so, and it's very much in the spirit of the neighborhood. So I'd be very open to supporting this initiative in a variety of ways. But before we get into that any further, I'd like to single out Leslie, only because I know she represents the owner. And, you don't need to say anything. You could just say hi if you want. But I just wanted to make sure I didn't misspeak or omit anything that you think we should bring up here before we move any further on the topic.
I was actually just going to stay quiet and, hear what others had to think. There might be some opportunity for local businesses to, sell their product at the, at these showings or whatever the case may be. I know that the proposal is to sell, pizza or popcorn, drinks strictly. I know Desert in North Miami is doing something similar. And I forget the dates on it, but I know that they're doing something in their space, like similar to a drive-in movie, coming up shortly. So that might be a model to sort of look at and see how it works or doesn't work, what the situation is.
Perfect. Agreed. Yeah, absolutely. That is one that we're watching as well. And there's one in Miami Beach that's coming up as well in a surface parking lot, much smaller in scale, but fundamentally the same program. Thank you, Leslie, for that. I think we have Sven here with us. So Sven, just wanted to get your thoughts on the concept.
I think it's great. I think it's great for the neighborhood, and I think it fits the neighborhood, and it's super cool. I love it. How long would it go for? And is it a local promoter? Is it a national company, or who's the one really putting it on?
So it is somebody local. It's not a national company or promoter. It's somebody that has worked with the city of Miami Beach on a variety of events, including in Wynwood with Mr. Manna, is my understanding. So it's somebody that has history in the marketplace. His company is called Function, F-U-N-K, Shun. And he puts on a variety of events throughout the year throughout South Florida. So he's definitely a skilled operator. And he's the one who put together this this proposal. And yeah, I think that
Thanks.
answers your question.
I think it's great.
Cool.
Great.
Great. David, any thoughts?
I love it. I think it's a great idea. A way of bringing people to Wynwood. I like the fact that you'll be able to see the screen from 95, which will make many people curious as to what's going on as well. So I'm totally behind it. I love the idea and the whole retro part and a perfect use for that space. My only question is, it doesn't negate the idea, but why is there a speaker wall truss system if you're listening to the sound from an FM radio in your car, because it says designated speaker? And then also having an Uber Eats drop-off area or something like that. I love the fact that many of the local Wynwood restaurants do, deliver food. So could there be like a separation zone for people to get food? Because it'd be a wonderful combination of people ordering food from local Wynwood businesses and then being able to watch a movie. So I'm 100% behind it. I love it.
Okay, great. I mean, certainly, I don't have the immediate answer to the truss system. I would imagine there's definitely a reason for that. It's probably to support the antennas that have to be laid out to be able to broadcast that signal, as well as to create some sort of partition system and kind of mark the areas as they need to direct traffic and keep things safely separated. But we will certainly follow up with that. I mean, obviously, this is a proposal that's being reviewed currently by a variety of departments at the city. So, pending a vote that I'm going to ask for in a minute from the group, it sounds like everybody's in support. We'll be able to then officially assist and hopefully expedite responsibly whatever concerns and mitigate and help troubleshoot whatever's in the way to get this rolling. We do think this is an opportunity. And I also think it's a competitive opportunity, quite frankly, because as Leslie mentioned, there's already 2 that are sprouting throughout South Florida. And I'm sure our friends across town and other places are probably similarly looking. And if they haven't already, now based on this, they're going to start looking. So we wish them all well, of course. But I do think that for Wynwood, this is a unique opportunity from a programming standpoint that we should be behind. So seeing that there's no other individuals that want to say anything else, I just wanted to open up to the staff in case Chris or Manny had any comments before we put it up to a vote. Doesn't look like there are any comments. All right. So I'm going to be looking for a second to this motion. So I am going to be unmuting all the microphones. So feel free to chime in as we would any time we convene. I'm looking for a second on a motion to support the applicant, including Moshmana for the Arsicola site for a drive-in movie theater concept. Leslie, because you might be technically in conflict, I'm just going to ask you to, as a courtesy, to recuse yourself from the vote.
I second it.
I'm not on the marketing committee technically,
okay.
so I wasn't going to say anything anyways.
No worries. But you're always, but as you know, as a board member, you are always a standing member, so you are entitled to vote when present, just to be clear. But noted. Thank you. So we got a second from David Charette. All those in favor, just say aye.
Aye.
All right. So Manny and I will huddle, and we will follow up with the parties at the city and at the county to hopefully bring this home to Wynwood. So thank you all for that. Moving next in our agenda, we have the COVID Business Impact Survey. I'm going to have Chris in a moment walk us through this. But as a reminder, we put out a survey last month to all of our businesses in the neighborhood. It was an opportunity for us to get a better sense of what was going on at the individual business owner level. And as you all have been reading, I'm sure, and those of you that have tenants have been hearing, and obviously those of you that have businesses in the neighborhood know very well, this has impacted everyone. So I'm going to ask Chris to kind of walk us through some of the results that we got from that. There's a few slides that he's going to show us now on the screen. Go ahead, Chris.
All right, just brought up on the screen. So this was the COVID Business Impact Survey, like Albert mentioned, we sent to all of our business community through email. Go to the next one. So it was over a 14-day period to collect the responses, just to make sure that everyone had ample time to answer it. It was a very quick survey, took less than 5 minutes. So all the businesses that took it, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. And we're hoping that the insights out of this will help us move forward and be good with this one. So some of the key findings here. So everyone knows about 44% had permanently laid off employees due to the pandemic, while about 72% have made short-term furloughs. So as we can see, the very big portion of our workforce within the neighborhood has been laid off temporarily. Hopefully they are able to bring them back once things start getting back to, I guess, this new normal. About 83% have seen at least a 50% drop in revenue since March 1st. Moving through the end of the year, about 57% that responded expect to see at least a 50% drop in revenue, and that's year over year. So when they compare from last year, they are expected to see at least a 50% drop, even as things kind of start to reopen here. As we go through it again, so 63% expect at least a 50% decline in profits through the end of the year again. So as we can see, even though things may reopen, people are still going to be feeling the impact from the 2 months so far that this has caused. And as far as people being optimistic about the end of the year, 95% were either somewhat or not at all optimistic that their actual business will recover. Most of it's ground by the end of the year. So this was very similar sentiments. We asked the same question on their business, the local South Florida economy, and the national economy. And they all resonated around the same percentages, where people were either somewhat or not at all optimistic that it would recover. I will say one person I think was very optimistic that their business was recovering in the national one. So I like the optimism there, whoever responded with that one. And yep, that's the key findings for that survey.
All right, thank you, Chris. Just opening it up again. Any questions from any board members as to the results from the survey? Nope. Okay. All right. We're going to move on to the next item. Reopening. That's the big question of the moment, of the day, of the month, of the year. So there's obviously a lot of things going on with this, and I hope to have a very robust discussion on the other side of this quick update with all of you on this call. While we do plan to reconvene our other committees and of course our board of directors, hopefully next month virtually, where we'll have a deeper dive as to what's been going on throughout the variety of initiatives that the BID has been working on. I just kind of want to touch on a few of them, since this is our first meeting of any kind since our last board meeting on March 12th, where the world pretty much changed literally hours after that last meeting. So we were literally right there, right before things started to dramatically shift. Words don't exist to acknowledge the efforts of our team, everybody on this call, including our executive director, Mandy Gonzalez, our projects coordinator, Alexander Sanchez, and of course our marketing coordinator, Chris Hoffman, who's also our technical director, by the way, and has been working diligently to make us all look great and sound great, and working with various other folks at the city, which we're going to acknowledge at the end. But basically, after that March 12th meeting, we were actually already ramping up our emergency protocols in anticipation of reopening. Having gone through this back in 2016 with Zika, we learned firsthand the devastation that these kind of pandemics can really usher into a community. Fortunately and unfortunately for us, when Zika came, it was really focused on Wynwood, and it did affect Miami Beach and other portions around Wynwood. But the kind of protocols that we were able to put into place because of that experience, really out of concern that we might have to go through another Zika incident, I think guided us quickly and early on in understanding what we needed to do to make sure that we were doing everything and more to think about our business owners and our commercial property owners and our visitors alike, to keep them safe and informed, more importantly, throughout all of this. So when we reconvene as a board, Manny will kind of go in greater detail about all the work that they've been doing. But as everybody knows, that's a part of this call and our meetings and our members. we were routinely on a daily basis almost sending out messaging before the closures and before the capacities and all the other things that are now kind of part of the common vernacular of Corona. We were already actively encouraging and informing businesses of what to expect as far as capacity constraints, closures. So we got a lot of feedback from all of them throughout that was very helpful in getting them ready to ramp down. Of course, we never foresaw how long this was going to run, but I think that was very helpful early on. Once it became clear this was going to be around for quite some time, we did not stop. We started focusing on the reopening strategy. So immediately we started having conversations with a variety of departments throughout the city and the county and the state. And I want to single out a few just for your purposes of information. So the Miami Parking Authority has been a huge partner, as they always have been in Wynwood. Manny and I immediately started getting on the phone, speaking with the various leaders at the Miami Parking Authority to expand on a pilot program that we had previously been discussing at a previous board meeting, which was to create designated drop-off and pickup areas for rideshare, for Uber and Lyft and other third-party providers to facilitate the flow of traffic in the neighborhoods to not bottleneck our single-lane streets. So that program has been fast-tracked. I'm going to ask Chris to pull up a map on the screen that kind of delineates the grid in the neighborhood, and I'm going to walk you through what's going on that while he works to get that on the screen. The idea behind that program was obviously initially just to kind of help with the influx of all the tourists and all the people that are coming to the neighborhood in rideshare. But pivoting to what we saw happening with restaurants, obviously with takeout and delivery, we saw the opportunity to really roll out this program quickly in the obvious new world that we live in. All of our restaurants are now primarily, and of course currently still, singularly focused on delivery and takeout. So we wanted to help them with that to keep the flow very efficiently. And we also relaxed the parking enforcement to, again, make it that much more hospitable for patrons to come in if they chose to come directly and pick up goods at any of these operators in the neighborhood. So we have about a dozen or so, and those are marked here by the little cars. Those are the rideshare locations. And we are dropping additional ones where you see X's and arrows, and we're going to talk about the dining program in a minute, but we'll come back to this map shortly. So Chris, if you want to just drop off that map for a minute and have it ready to come back. So that's up and running. And MPA also just announced, and again, a big thank you to them, citywide as of yesterday, the first hour of parking throughout the city of Miami is free to everyone. You still have to go into the pay by phone app, and you still got to register your location and open a parking session, but that first hour is free. And then the subsequent hours are being reduced in rate to Miami residents, and I believe they are working on a larger segment, again, to make it that much more attractive and hospitable and considerate in these economic times for people to come out and be able to park and make it much more affordable. There have been a lot of conversations with a variety of departments at the city as well, and that includes, of course, our folks at the city manager's office. So one of the things that we saw from the capacity controls early on, and knowing how we were ramping up the closures, that these capacity limits were going to be with us on the other side. Case in point, we just reopened retail throughout the city of Miami yesterday. A week from today, actually a week from yesterday, which would be Wednesday, May 27th, our restaurants are going to be allowed to reopen. Both of our restaurants and our retail businesses are limited to 50% occupancy. There is a operating handbook that was released by Miami-Dade County. It's available on our website, as well as City of Miami, Stand Up Miami's plan for reopening, which also furthers some of those conditions, which I know have been shared with our membership. But we knew that was going to be very difficult, even with the 50% constraints. When you factor in the distancing for dining tables and chairs, and the limits and the pathways that need to be, considered for proper circulation, even in a best case scenario, even at 50% occupancy, a restaurateur is probably not going to be able to achieve 50%. So we started talking to Miami Parking Authority, City Manager's Office, and I'm really pleased to announce here today. I think it's the first time it's ever been discussed publicly. I know it's been speculated, but it's official. We are going to be working with our partners at a variety of different levels throughout the city and the county to make it happen. So what does this mean? So on-street parking in key areas throughout Wynwood are going to be designated as outdoor dining spaces. These are going to be adjacent to the restaurants that are going to be able to benefit from this amenity. And the Wynwood bid is going to absorb 100% of the expense associated with building out the infrastructure to make sure that these areas are properly buffered and secured. And of course, it's on the operator to then provide their own furnishings, such as tables and chairs, again, in alignment with all of the reopening guidelines that have been set forth through the emergency orders. So we've been speaking with just about every restaurant operator in the district that has a large dining room that obviously is adversely impacted by these constraints. And we're also taking into consideration those that have private property adjacent to their restaurants that perhaps prior to this weren't being utilized as part of their dining room, outdoor or indoor for that matter. So the other half of this program that we've been working on is going to allow restaurants that have their own private parking lots or private sidewalks or patio spaces to expand their dining footprint outdoors within private property, assuming they get the consent of their landlords. So we've also been communicating with landlords in anticipation of this to make this super easy and hopefully have everything in place in time for the 27th. So there's a lot of moving parts. Manny and I have been meeting regularly with the city manager and a variety of other directors throughout the city to really expedite this. Also, Coconut Grove and Brickell downtown have also been a part of these conversations. So this is going to be rolled out throughout the city in a pilot program. It won't be the permanent plan, but it will be renewed as needed to extend the program until such time as things get back to quote unquote normal. I'm going to pause on that one because I do want to open it up for any questions, because I know there are some restaurant owners on the call and landlords that have restaurant tenants. And knowing that this is a work in progress, I'm going to try to answer as many questions as I have. I'm going to go ahead and just allow everybody to kind of chime in as they'd like if there's any questions. If not, I'll continue. Raise your hand if you have any questions, any comments. No? Okay, we'll power through this. Great. So the bid will be working on that, and we'll be sending out information shortly that's being prepared by the city legal department. It includes an FAQ. And as businesses reopen that need this benefit, we'll work with them individually to make sure they get all the proper paperwork done, which again, we're going to absorb all, if not as much of the expense as we can. The next component of what we've been working towards as part of the reopening is obviously from a marketing standpoint. So you saw in the recap from Taylor and Kivvit and from Chris that we've been very active and very experimental in what we've been doing with our social media channels throughout the closure. And now as we get to the reopening, we're really focusing on ramping up the messaging. Now, we're not going to just put all of our eggs in one basket at the front of this because we don't know how long this is going to run. So the goal is to taper all of our initiatives. As we know, there's still businesses that, despite being allowed to open or soon to reopen, are probably going to continue to stay closed for a few weeks or a few months for a variety of reasons, willingly or based on the economic realities. So we're cognizant of that as well. We've also been working with GMCVB. As you all know, Chris and I sit on the executive committee at the GMCVB for marketing. And I do want to show a quick 60-second commercial that the GMCVB just put together that we were a part of in helping shape as supporters of everything that they do. And it's now being broadcast throughout television, not just locally, but throughout the country. And I'll talk more about the national plan on the other side of the video. So Chris, go ahead.
Sometimes, looking ahead is what moves us forward. It's in those moments when we discover who we truly are, where we appreciate more than ever the beauty of life and turn that admiration into inspiration. with life-affirming optimism and a thirst for endless discovery. There's a place with that same bright, sun-drenched attitude. It radiates from everything, from every corner, and from everyone. It turns bricks and mortar into masterpieces and lets nature thrive in its natural state. So we invite you to look forward to a brilliant tomorrow in a place that sparks joy and ignites smiles. We can't wait to welcome you with open arms. Until then, we stand by you as you stand by, ready for our Miami sun to shine brighter than ever. Let's shine together.
So I think that's a beautiful video. I think it hits on all the notes that we're feeling and obviously filled with optimism for the future. So working together with the GMCVB, we've identified an opportunity. Again, this is for the larger South Florida tourism economy, which of course is a cornerstone to Wynwood's success long-term. And we're firm believers. I know our directors over at GMCVB share my belief as well that there is a short-term opportunity, and I say short-term loosely, I mean over the next 6 to 12 months as we await and hope for a vaccine and other advances in the medical field to restore consumer confidence and ease travel restrictions, that we're going to see a growth in domestic tourism. Of course, being in South Florida, having the beaches, which we hope to have reopened after the turn of June 1st, and that's something that we're working together with our partners at Miami Beach to keep an eye on. But the goal is to focus on attracting domestic visitors who perhaps had previously scheduled plans before all of this started to travel overseas, to Europe, to Latin America, to visit family. And now, of course, because of budgetary constraints, perhaps, as well as travel restrictions, those options are off the table. And as people start to kind of sneak out and walk out and get in their cars and feel more confident about exploring the outdoors again, we're very hopeful that we're going to see an increase in car travel, road trips, as well as flights from other cities throughout the country attracted to our warm weather and our beaches and all of our offerings outdoors. We're very blessed and unique to have a 50-block neighborhood that's really optimized for the outdoor experience. So I also believe that in a hyper-local market, we also have an advantage to enclosed shopping centers and malls that we certainly hope will weather this storm. But I think for Wynwood, the walkability factor and the outdoor factor are going to be considerations that I think are going to reward us in the short term as we start to reopen. So that's kind of the big strategy nationally, and we're going to be putting money behind this to further that messaging. We're going to be refocusing our social media efforts to send that type of messaging as well to augment what is being done collectively by the GMCVB. And of course, our channels speak to a very local audience as well. So we'll have messaging that's being focused on that. Yesterday, our retail opened. Next Wednesday, restaurants reopen. So all of our efforts are really going to be focused and optimized on those messaging, on all of that. So we're going to be reposting and working in collaboration with all of our restaurateurs and retailers for a variety of takeovers and initiatives to really drive home the message. Everybody's obviously now screaming, "I'm open. Please come and help me out as a small business owner." So we're no different in that regard. So the opportunity for us is of course, to be as different and as unique as we can. Just a couple of things that I want to round out on the reopening. Security is a big concern. I know it has been throughout the last several weeks. So, our secondary financial investment on our Wynwood security camera network was tendered to the city. And hopefully over the next couple of weeks, we'll start to see a doubling of those resources, which, by the way, I got to say, over the last 2 months has been invaluable. As probably many of you know, Miami Police Chief Kalina was diagnosed with COVID-19, as was our mayor, of course, Francis Suarez. But even in Wynwood, our Wynwood Net team at some points actually had to self-quarantine because there was believed to be some spread, which thankfully didn't occur at the time. But there were moments where we had reduced officers on the street, but that did not mean that that came at the price of our safety and security and surveillance. There's only been, I think, a very small, if negligible, list of issues that have happened, and largely all of them have been addressed thanks mostly to that program. So the investment has paid off in ways that we never imagined, and of course makes even more the difference now that it's being expanded. So it's a $500,000 investment from the bid, and I'm sure we'll be looking to adding more to that investment in the future. Our I-95 exit pursuit and our Tri-Rail station pursuit are making progress. We'll have more update on that during our board meeting, but we have been focused on making sure that that has not been affected by this, as well as our North Miami Avenue infrastructure improvement project, which continues to move. Also happy from an economic development standpoint to point out that yesterday, CIM Group, which is working on the Wynwood Square redevelopment new construction project on Miami Avenue and 23rd Street, topped off. That's a great milestone from a construction standpoint. They've completed principal construction, and now we're going to start filling out that site. So all of our construction sites throughout the neighborhood were largely uninterrupted. We were working behind the scenes again to make sure and advocate for them that they were classified as an essential business, so long as they abided by all of the health and distancing requirements, which they all did in Wynwood and I'm sure throughout Miami-Dade County. So we were very much vocal about that. It's a momentum that obviously we've been working towards for the past decade, and we wanted to make sure it continues. I'm going to pause and open it up again for any questions and discussion, because I have been talking a little bit more than I thought, but it's hard to read body language. So does anybody have any questions, comments, things they want to add to the discourse so far?
Albert, if I may just add really quickly, this is Kelly Penton from Kivvit also. Just wanted to tag on to what Taylor had said earlier, since we're talking about reopening, to make sure the committee knows that we have been actively pitching Wynwood this week for the retail opening that happened just earlier this week, and we'll be doing another push around restaurant openings next week as well. Today, there was a front page story in the Miami Herald about shopping areas reopening, and Wynwood was prominently featured in that. We have the South Florida Business Journal and the Miami New Times working on stories as well about reopening that will feature Wynwood, and we're also doing a push around national. So just want to make sure you know that we're continuing to do a proactive press initiative around everything that's happening, but now it's really focusing on reopening. And thank you very much to Sven, by the way, who has made himself available on short turnaround for media, including WSVN 7, who did a story this week that featured Wynwood and Koyo.
Thank you, Kelly. Any other board members, members of the committee that like to maybe opine or echo anything that you've heard? Sven, do you like the idea that we're trying to put seating on the parking lanes to help you guys with the capacity?
I do. We're very excited about it, and we're looking at how we're going to utilize it with the flow of guests coming in, and it's very valuable for one of our restaurants, and we're excited. Yeah.
Terrific. David, any thoughts, any questions, anything you want to add or that you want to echo that you liked?
I think everything you guys have discussed is great. I'm really excited. I think it's very proactive, and I'm really hopeful that the businesses will be able to thrive and quickly. So good job.
Great. Leslie,
yeah,
I'm going to put you on the spot. Oh, go ahead, Glenn. Go ahead, Glenn.
No, I was just going to say, great initiative. Sorry, I joined in a little bit late here. I think it's an amazing initiative, great coordinating a lot of stuff for these local businesses to ensure that they can operate at a greater capacity with the rules and regulations that have been set upon them. And hopefully it goes off without a hitch, and yeah, amazing job.
Glenn, just because you joined us after the roll call, could you just state your full name for the record?
Glenn Organ.
Excellent. Thank you, Glenn. Appreciate that. And Leslie, go ahead.
I think it's great. When there was the public comment, I listened to what I think one of the public comments was about outdoor spaces being allocated for restaurants. And I wrote down in my notes a question about what we would do for warrants or whatever the case may be. Because I know that that was an issue in the past with outdoor seating having the available warrants that they need, restaurants having the available warrants that they would need for outdoor restaurants. But I'm thinking with what you mentioned that the applications to the city would provide whatever the restaurants needed for this additional outdoor seating. And I think it's a great initiative that will definitely help the restaurants. I hope that all the restaurants in Wynwood will avail themselves of the opportunity, because from a personal standpoint, I think that outdoor seating is what's going to come back the first. If restaurants have outdoor seating, that's where people are going to flock to first.
Agreed. I think that's where they're going to feel the safest for sure. Thank you for that, Leslie. And just to answer that question, the goal is to make it very simplified. And they're trying to make it a 1 sheet or 2 sheet at most application, which is mostly going to be boxes that you check and spaces that you fill out with just basic information. So it's not going to be as typical of the city. They've really worked hard to remove a lot of the bureaucracy. So, I just want to make sure that I continue to emphasize the appreciation we have for the city administration in particular, for their work to expedite this, because as everyone can imagine, this is obviously new terrain that we're all working towards. And then lastly, and thanks for all of that, one of the things that I think was mentioned also during the public comments that Leslie alluded to was a concern from residents in the pedestrian experience. Our sidewalks are very narrow in the neighborhood, as everybody knows. And as we need to, consider people taking selfies again and, coming and walking through the neighborhood, there has been some concern expressed about how to do that safely. So one of the things that we are working now, but we don't have a quick answer, but we are exploring, is to figure out ways where we can temporarily extend the sidewalk, again, into that parking lane, not to conflict with the dining areas, of course, that we're now working to open up, but to kind of widen, at least on certain parts of the neighborhood where we have a lot of pedestrian activity, to again provide people for a little bit more space to walk through safely with 6 feet apart, et cetera. So we know it's tough, and we're definitely working on that. So stay tuned for that, and we hope to have an update by the time we get back together again virtually. So that kind of covers, the recap. I want to acknowledge, several of our property owners and businesses, because, beyond just the reopening story, there's been phenomenal acts of charity and kindness that we've been witness to, that I know for me has been just really inspiring. And just to start off with, I think the biggest really has been what Moish Manna and the team at Manna Wynwood have done now 3 times in partnering with FarmShare and Mayor Suarez and others to have these food distribution services for the larger community over at Manna Wynwood. I know from just speaking to police that people have been getting in line, up to 8-9 hours before these food distributions open. I mean, we're talking about people getting in line at 11 p.m. for something that opens up the next morning at 9 or 10 a.m., waiting and desperately in need of the basics of food for their families, for themselves. So, as a neighborhood, we're very proud and really appreciative of what that team has done to do their part. As well as, smaller operators that you heard briefly during the beginning of the call with Chris. Salty Donut has been doing a buy one, send one donut free to first responders. Domio has obviously opened up their hotel rooms to hospital workers at Jackson Health. And that was an initiative that was truly spearheaded and really hatched by Manny Gonzalez, our executive director. So we've been working on a variety of different fronts and spotlighting these efforts. So I think as a community, we should be proud. There's definitely a lot more that has to be done, but there are people in need. And I think that needs to be part of our ongoing focus as well as we ramp up. Just quickly, before I open it up to new business, I do want to acknowledge again a few people outside of our team that have been really instrumental in the last 8 weeks in keeping us safe, keeping us clean, and now with the ramp up to reopening, doing it in a way that's truly giving us hope. Our city manager, our city mayor, of course, as well. Our city commissioners, in particular, our two commissioners, Keon Hardiman and Ken Russell. Our city manager, Art Noriega, who I've been talking to quite frequently now about this, and our assistant city manager as well. Our city attorney's office for working with us to get us back up and running with these virtual meetings. We definitely want to thank them, and the clerk's office, and the directors and staffs from a variety of departments at the city, including planning, zoning, public works, solid waste, code compliance, communications, who is actually doing the whole live stream right now for us, the net office, fire, MPA, and of course the police department. The county has also been very involved. I actually served on County Mayor Jimenez's task force to reopen the economy, so I got to serve in that capacity, and I was very honored to do so, and similarly at the state level. So I want to thank the mayor from the county, our county commissioner, Audrey Edmondson, and the entire county administration, in particular the directors of the Department of Economic Development, the communications team at the county, and the Department of Transportation and Public Works there as well, which together with our city Public Works, were able to do this dining program and make it a reality. So very important that we acknowledge that. And of course, at the state level, as I mentioned, the governor's office, his staff, the Florida Department of Health, and the state surgeon general, who we never thought we'd be talking to again after Zika about anything else, but here we are. So those relationships certainly helped out get the information going. And then nationally, we've been working very closely with the National Restaurant Association, the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association, and of course the entire team of the GMCVB to advocate from a policy standpoint, both in DC and Tallahassee and locally, to make sure that loan programs, grant programs are out there and available for our business owners and our employees in the neighborhood. And again, of course, our bid team for all that they've been working on. So with that, I'm going to move it over to new business. Does anybody have any new business or any items that they'd like to bring up? Seeing none, any final thoughts, any last comments before we close out the meeting? Manny, you're good? All right, excellent. All right. Well, I want to thank all of you for making yourselves available, and the public for tuning in and watching. This meeting will, of course, be uploaded as a recorded meeting and available for everyone to view at any time. And we point you to wynwoodmiami.com for more information about the bid and all the activities that we're working on. We do plan to reconvene again in the coming weeks in a variety of different forums with our committees and our board of directors. So if you're not subscribed already to our newsletter, please do so at our homepage. And with that, I'd like to make a motion to close our meeting. Is there a second? We need to hear you, so unmute yourself. Is there a second from anybody on the committee to close our meeting? Can't close the meeting until I get a second.
I'll second.
All right. We got to go home, or we are home. We got to close the meeting. All right, Sven, thank you for that second. All those in favor, please say aye. Seeing no objections, this meeting has come to a close. Thank you again to everybody, and stay safe and healthy, and we look forward to seeing you soon in the neighborhood.
Bye.